Well, good morning, my Tisa King family. How's everybody on Friday the 13th? So, let's see what the hell's going on. So we see here silver 77.65, 77.74. It's all bullshit. It's all futures. It's all options. It's all a game. None of this is real. Gold 5,002. We've had the 10 o'clock. We had the 5 minute to 10 drop, and then it went up, but you could get a drop anytime. And 77.74. Neither price is real. It's just paper. It's getting very tiresome because it's not real. I'm trying to understand the whole point of the futures market, right? We're going to price control gold and keep the price low so everybody stays in dollars instead of having a free market price of gold and silver. So we can keep printing our money to zero. I got a nice Rothchilds video for you, which kind of it kind of goes through their history, and basically they were bankers in like the 1700s, and they basically had their money in every country. So when they'd go to war, they'd lose their money in like in Germany, but they'd make their money in France and England or wherever. Really stupid. All I had to do is buy gold, and they wouldn't have to worry about it. And there's another one. I think that was the same. I don't know. There was two videos I was watching this morning. I didn't see Mark McGuire, but sometimes he comes on now. It is Friday the 13th, so happy Friday the 13th. Hope it's a lucky day for us. Again, if we hold physical gold, we win. That's all I can say. The moral of this story is to keep your money out of the government, out of the way of the government. Keep it safe. Keep it secret. Keep it simple. Secret. Keep it safe. Like the precious. I mean, the government's never going to come knock on your door. Give me your gold. It's too much. It's too easy to hide it. It's too easy to. They don't even know you have it. I don't know if we'll get new rule changes on it, like when we buy and sell anymore. I don't know. All I know is don't buy 10,000 in cash. Buy 9,000 in cash. And there shouldn't be any 1099 and or I keep mine secret. I don't give social security numbers or anything like that. And when you go sell it, sell an ounce or two here and an ounce or two there. Do not take 50 ounces and sell it. I know Luke's worried about capital gains tax, and it's you don't sell that much. If you have to once a month, you sell 20 ounces. You want to go buy your house. Why would you pay cash for the house? Because you're going to lose the money. So you really want to use the gold to buy the house, but if you have to buy the house, be careful and make a a low bid and try to buy it that way, or go into a condo and rent for another year or two until the prices crash on the houses. Stock market's getting near crashing time. These things will happen because they're too high, too much money in them, so they will crash. They're not the value like a value of the house is totally out of whack because it's valued in dollars. And as we know, in every country, since the beginning of time, the governments don't know how to monitor their money. And I'm assuming this is because Austrian economics didn't come into like the late 1600s with Adam Smith. And mostly they're Keynesians and they think they can print. I don't think they correlate printing and losing. I wish. I'm fine. How are you today? I don't think they correlate. If I print a lot, the dollars will be worthless. So I think whoever's running the government, you have idiots in charge of the government. You have idiots in charge of the money. And they just say, oh, we'll print more, we'll print more, we'll print more. It's like, oh, let's have a cake and let's have another piece and I'll have another piece. And, it's a frenzy. You don't realize you can't have all these cakes, but you do anyway. And I think that's a big problem. So that's what happens with that. And so it keeps, you can't print the money. You can't just keep printing it. And, but they don't realize it. So now the US, what are we doing? Yeah, well, we'll just keep printing because somehow they think the reserve currency saves them. No, it doesn't. Being the reserve currency, I'm not even sure what that means. It was a Ponzi scheme to get people to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. You had to use dollars to buy, but that's no longer the case. Or this whole FX. Well, I think the FX was related to the petrodollar, that you needed the dollar to buy the oil. So I think that's what it was. I don't know if you needed the dollar, if you're in Switzerland to go to Germany and you needed to change your Swiss francs for dollars to go to Germany to buy euros. I don't know if that's it. I assume. I'm not sure because I see these big boards. Let me show you. When I was on vacation, once in a while I put this on as my thumbnail. See here, they have an exchange booth and there's different dollars. We can't really. Here you go. So this is what each currency is worth. So this is to Ukrainian dollar. So this is it takes 27 Ukrainian dollars to get a dollar, but then 30 for the euro and Poland, and then Great Britain pound and Swiss franc and Canadian dollar and Australia. That's probably Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, I guess, Romania, the RON, Turkey, China. So you can see they're giving you the discount. So I think it's just when you wanted to buy oil that you needed to do that. And now we're back. Now look how quickly now, past 10 o'clock, 5,005, and now 78 for silver. And we'll watch it run. So you can see in my title, what's the real price? We've seen it at 120. We've seen it at 100. We've seen it at 90. We've seen it in the 80s. We see it at 78 now, all in the last 2-3 weeks, right? Middle of January. It's not even the middle of February. So in a month, we have no idea what the real price of silver is. So what kind of bullshit is this futures market, right? Pure bullshit. John C. Hello. I was this time buying gold and silver. Save. Good. Yep. Good idea. Okay. I don't know what all that mess was. So, you know, this whole Comex futures is the stupidest idea I've ever seen since watching Ray Dalio try to explain his little. I keep fucking up that word. I thought I had it. His little God, what's the word? Cycles. I thought I was going to remember it by saying bicycle, but it didn't pop in. But cycles. So he does his little cycles. He couldn't explain it. This is about futures. Who cares? So somebody can, say, well, I want to lock in. I'm going to lock in silver at $84? Is it, I bet silver won't go over $84? I bet it's going to come down. What exactly is a future? Right? Because it doesn't make any sense. We don't know what the price is. How can we know what the future is? It's all paper. So you're trying to do, instead of, 500,000 physical ounces, you're trying to do 50 million paper ounces. Well, how does that give you any type of price, any type of future? The whole thing's just beyond stupid. It's like pro football with the stupid kickoff. Well, what is that, right? I was watching some older Super Bowls. It's nice to see him kick the ball off and everything. Oh yeah, I know. That's what I wanted to also talk to you about was the NFL fixing the rate, how many people watched it. It's not real. It's fake, right? They're faking that number with the Nielsen network or whatever, the Nielsen. So it's like 10 times more than what's really watching. Basically, the NFL and the NBA are in big trouble. Nobody cares. Nobody's watching it anymore. They've made it too feminine. You can't foul in basketball, and everybody sits there, takes 3-point shots. Yeah, I don't want to go to sleep. And in football, same thing. You can't hit the quarterback. We can't kick off. There's too many penalties, too many refs, too many stoppages. Let's look at the instant replay. You're killing the game. The game is gone. It's boring. It's not real. We don't even believe it's real. So you're kind of feminizing the game. We need minority coaches. We need minority quarterbacks. Not the best, but the minority, and nobody cares about that. As soon as you start doing that, and you lose the real essence, the best, right? As soon as when you instead of Joe Montana, we're going to have Lamar quarterback the Niners, right? And you kill the product because it's not quality anymore; it's quantity. Geez, we need more minority coaches. No, we need the best. If I'm a billionaire and I'm running this company and it's $1 billion company, I'm going to hire the coach that wins. I don't want to be a joke. I mean, look at the Lions. They kept hiring every 2 years. They'd hire somebody else. And now they got another loser at coach. So, I don't know what they're doing. But that's that. I'll show you that video also. So what the Rothschilds did is they sat there and they had money, and there'd be all these wars in Europe, and they didn't know what to do. So Rothschild sent his sons to Spain, France, England, Germany, whatever. And when they'd have a war, they'd get wiped out in one of the banks and not in the other. And what it teaches you is you don't leave your money in the banks. You don't leave your money in money. anything to do with the government who doesn't know how to run the money, can't control it, can't hold the value of it, you just ignore. And that's what we've been saying for the last, since I've been on here, probably even before 2021, probably in 2000 when I started this. Um, Probably, well, it's been 16 years, so 2010. I probably talked about gold and silver lightly at that point, knowing I knew in 1995 you want to be in gold and silver. I had a little, but I got the baseball cards, but that was just as good. The key was to buy real assets. A Picasso. Well, you can't take a Picasso to the grocery store. I love that analogy. I can't take gold to the grocery store, so I shouldn't have it. I mean, the the argument's so stupid. It's hard to really understand it. But anyway, that's really what you want to do is get out of because the government will go broke because it always has. I mean, we saw 1923 Germany government kept printing and printing and printing, but then we saw Zimbabwe, Sri Lanka, Venezuela. Now they're all price fixed and they're all bankrupt. And the only reason Zimbabwe, they were smart enough to go on a gold standard, and they're much better off. We know that without we understand that gold you can't print. So the gold standard, the gold's what protects the money. So as soon as you go off the gold standard, the money's not protected. You're done. You might not be done right away, but you're done. And so if you're smart, you just get the gold and keep it safe. And that's all you do. And you don't really even rely on the banks because you can't trust them. You can't trust the governments and you can't trust the banks. Never have, never could. Look in Rome. How could Rome collapse? They took the gold and silver out of their money. That's what debasing is. I'm debasing the coin by taking the gold out. I'm not debasing a dollar that has no gold or silver in it. I'm inflating the dollar. Then I heard one guy start talking about prices and I had to turn him off. Well, the PPI comes out. As soon as you hear that, you walk away. These guys are clueless and that's got nothing to do with anything, the PPI. But that's kind of what you're looking at is why are you in gold and the whole point. Now Comex is playing their game pricing. So there is no price for the dollar. Nobody knows its value. Just because this euro says 5 on it doesn't mean it's worth €5. Or what is €5 worth? If we're in Germany now, what could I buy with this €5? Probably nothing. Maybe a gumball. And if I'm in America, what can I, this is a $1. But if you notice, let's say you have $100, it says 100 on it. So you think, well, I got $100. But the point you're missing is the value of the money, right? Printing the money inflates the money, kills the value. So that's what it is, right? So it's not worth 100. This is not worth $1 anymore. It is worth $1, but the value of the dollar is worthless. You can't buy anything with $1. Where when you're watching 1970s or 1980s, for $1 you can go to McDonald's, get a hamburger, fries, and Coke for $1. Now it's $10 or $11. It's a psychological thing also. People, even though if we go buy steaks and they're $20, it's still a bargain because the $20 is worth $2. So you're actually getting a steak for $2, but you don't see it that way. You don't want to spend 20. So that's the big Ponzi scheme the government does to you. They don't really revalue. They kill the value of the dollar, but it still says 100. So you think, oh, I got 100. And that's the problem. And we know the value of gold and silver. And so in Comex, they're trying to control the price. Why? I have no idea. Does it make any sense? Absolutely not. It is not tied to the dollar. I don't know why people think it is. It's got nothing to do with the dollar. It's only priced in dollars, but it's got nothing to do with it. If there's heavy inflation, people go into gold and silver because it's an asset that can't be inflated. And it's the same as buying a Mantle card. Does that affect the dollar? No. Does a Picasso or my Van Gogh over here? Does this Van Gogh go up in value? That's a poster. But does it go up in value? Does that affect the dollar? No. It just takes more dollars to buy the Van Gogh or the Picasso or the Mantle or the Brady or the Rolex or the gold or silver. But it's got really nothing to do. Even gold and silver really have nothing to do with each other except for they're both precious metals. This whole gold silver ratio doesn't make any sense because it's one thing has nothing to do. All that is what comes out of the ground. Supposedly, there's more silver than gold. Hence this. Well, it comes. There's less gold than silver, which who knows, and then therefore we do this ratio, which is totally meaningless. Like I say, it's the same as doing a ratio on a Mickey Mantle card and a Babe Ruth card. There's no correlation to it, or Ruth or Mantle and Michael Jordan, or Mantle and Joe Montana. There's no relationship to it. There's no relationship to gold or silver, except we believe gold is more limited. We believe it. So therefore, gold has a higher value. But what the relationship is, we have no idea. And it's based on demand. It's not based on anything else. So if everybody buys more silver because they want a precious metal, because they want to get out of the dollar and they go buy it, there's no ratio to it. Now, if they got close, let's say they're both $10,000, I would buy the gold for $10,000 and the silver for $10,000. So that's why I don't think they'd get even, but they certainly could. But who would rather own silver than gold? I mean, now, yeah, the industrial people with the solar panels and the AI and all that crap, those people need the silver, so they might pay more than they would for gold. But I would bet gold's a better insulation than silver is. If it came down to it and they were priced the same, I bet all these people would be in gold. Gold has to be the best insulator. So we're sitting there watching Comex, and it's a waste of time. I mean, look at how it fluctuates. Um, Look how it fluctuates. What is it, like 10 o'clock? And it's spam time. So you have all that. So you really disregard Comex. We know it's not real. We know it's paper options. And how can that control the physical price of gold? We know it's a futures market. Question is why? All right, back when they were in the 70s, we're still on the gold standard, and France wants all the gold. And so we wanted to keep it at $35 instead of $800. Yeah, but that's gone. Right now, it's gold's in China and Russia and BRICS. We don't have any here. I love that argument. We do have some, right? And again, it's who are you listening to? Because you have no idea. I have no idea. It's like playing Hold'em. You have no idea what my two cards are. I can give you any expression or act any way I want. You still have no idea what my two cards are. And the same thing with that. We can say whatever we want. We have no idea if there is or is not gold in Fort Knox. We believe if there was, they would take it out, price it, and pay off the debt with it. So we don't really believe there is. TK, is it worth anything, your poster? No, a couple dollars maybe. I mean, I got it in Germany at the Van Gogh Museum. No, in Amsterdam at the Van Gogh Museum, but it's just a poster. But if you didn't want to go to Amsterdam and you wanted it, $2 or $3, $5 maybe, just to save you on the trip. But that's all. It's identical of the painting, but it's just a poster. But no, I don't. Do posters get? Well, I guess movie posters might. So it might have a few dollars of value. Um. Anyway, so how do we determine that? Right. So John sees, oh yeah, I want to buy your poster for you. And I'd say, all right, how about $10? And he'd go, well, either that's too much or yeah, I'd really like to get a Van Gogh poster. $10 is good. That's the price of the poster now, is what we have it agreed on. So, A, is there a market? John C's interested. At what point do I sell it for? $10. But I'm a little leery because it's hard to get that, right? Because I have to be in the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam to get it. I can't get it here. Now, maybe I can get it online. I don't know. I would think so now, but you'd have to pay shipping, would probably cost you $25 to get it shipped to you, right? So there would be a market. He wants what I have, so he'll buy it. Now we got to work out a price. What's the price of it? What do I want to part it for? And what will he pay for it? Can we come to an agreement? I say $10. He says, yeah, I don't have to go to Amsterdam. The flight would cost me, $1,000. Getting into the museum and then buying it, it was €3 or something. And I bought that with this other one. So this is my other Van Gogh here. This I like this one. That's a reflection of something. Oh, that's over here. Yeah, that's a chair. Yeah, that's a reflection of the window. So I have two of them. No, at first I was going to get them framed and they wanted to charge me like $200. I'm like, no, then I found these frames at Walmart and it was like perfect. But so I have two of them, but so let's say 10. Now we have a market and now we have a price. And what you're doing with gold and silver is you don't have a market. They're all using the Comex price as the market. So if I went to buy silver today and it's $78, the guy's going to charge me 80 because that's going on Comex. And we all know Comex isn't a real price. And we know it's a paper price. So we know it's very limited. And we go, well, times 10. So $780 is what I should be paying because that's probably the physical price. Because again, when it goes down in the real market, it doesn't go down. If Pat comes on, he'll say, and in Singapore, does the price ever go down on that? Well, they don't know what the price is at, and they use Comex as the price. So they don't really know what the price is, but people will buy it. And again, the nature of people, we think it's more valuable, we'll buy it, right? So if we think the physical is 10 times more than the paper, and they're pricing it at the paper price of 78, our in tune is to say it's worth a lot more than 78. I'll buy it. Now, if you marked it at 780, I'd buy a lot less because it would cost me less. So my birthday's coming up. I'll probably buy maybe five more ounces of silver, unless he has a tenth of an ounce of gold, which he hasn't had much gold. But if he has a tenth of an ounce, I might buy that instead. You can never have too much gold or silver. But that'll be the only thing that holds up. When the dollar collapses and the stock market collapses, everything priced in dollars will collapse. And really your only way out is the gold and silver will not collapse because it's not run by the government. As much as what Comex is, but in the real world, gold and silver doesn't need the dollar. So people keep asking me, well, when you go sell your gold and silver, you'll be in fiat money. And I keep going, but you don't understand. That becomes the money. Gold and silver is money. People will take it. Kroger's would take it, but it's illegal for Kroger's to take it, right? A small the barbecue place I go to will take it. It's off the books, and I would pay for the meal, and he'd give me the value. So right now it's $78. I'd buy, a $25 meal, and he'd give me back $50 in change, and he'd have the silver, and I'm sure he'd be happy about it. But see, there's laws that like Kroger's has to take dollars, right? That's a law. So that's why all these companies take it, because they have to. Now they would take Bitcoin if they felt it was worth something, but it just went from 120 down to 67. So what's the value? So if I would have sold you a $120,000 car for a Bitcoin, now I'm fucked, because now it's only worth 67,000. I just lost $50,000 selling you my $120,000 car. The housing bill. So everything that's priced in dollars will go to zero. Then it will get so like a house, $500,000 house goes to zero. Then it comes back, and then me and John C sit there. Well, what should we pay for it? I got gold, And then what does the price drop to? Oh, the price drops to 2 ounces, 3 ounces of gold, which will be worth $40,000, $50,000. See, people look at what's happening today. They don't understand. In Germany in 1923, you needed a wheelbarrow because the dollar became worthless, and the value of the gold would have jumped dramatically. Or what the house that was selling for $500,000 in Berlin, the price went to zero, and then all of a sudden, with an ounce or two of gold, you could buy the house, because the value of the house also goes down, because the value of the dollar or the Deutschmark would go to zero. And that's a real high concept that you've got to understand, that everything priced in dollars, since the dollar is how you price things, and the dollar's collapsing, and the dollar will go to zero pretty close, you really won't be able to use it, because it's nothing. So the only thing you can use is things outside of the government, which is gold and silver. That's why it's important not to buy it with your social security number, then you're back in the system. You're trying to stay out of the system. You don't want them to know you have it. You don't really want anybody to know you have it, because you got to be careful. I mean, you tell your wife, your girlfriend, or maybe your kids, but you got to be careful. You don't want too many people knowing it. And because when the shit hits the fan and people are starving, they're going to want your gold. And as I tell Alyssa, my money's in gold and silver. I don't have too much money in monopoly money, right? So I don't have $20,000 in this. I moved it into gold and silver. It's in this and gold right now. So if you need money, I can't help you, because I'm not gonna sell that. Just avocado. I'm not gonna sell that at this point. If I have to, I'll sell an ounce. But that's it. I'm not really looking to sell too much. So that's where we're at with it. And this is why I'm struggling with Comex. What the fuck are they doing? It's not worth anything. We don't know what the real price is. It's way too volatile to really say, well, silver's $78, because at this moment, Comex says it is, based on the futures contracts, based on these options that these people are playing with. That's why I give you Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. I mean, there's a point where the orange juice starts at 104, goes up to 140, and they sell it at 140. They sold it hoping the price would go down. The Duke and Dukes were buying it hoping the price would go up, hoping that there was a problem with the orange crop. It would be much more, the supply would be zero or very low, because of the frost, and therefore the price would go up. So that's what Duke and Duke was betting on. But as you can see, they buy it at 142, and then everything's fine. There's no problem with the supply, and it goes all the way down to 26. What's the price of orange juice? 142, 104, 26. It's none of them. It's put it on the shelf and see what people buy it for. And if you notice, the grocery stores do sell it at $2, $3, and people either buy it or don't. If they don't buy it, then they put it on sale. So they're kind of not using Comex, I don't think, to really price orange juice, but gold and silver is something different where they're well, what's Comex at? What's Comex? And like, that's the Bible. And if you understand anything, you would buy as much as you can because you realize Comex is nowhere near the real price. It's the paper price, which is what I always try to enforce. But Comex is a joke. It's totally it's illegal. It's immoral. It's just stupid. It's so the banks can get rich playing little Ponzi schemes. That's what I don't get. Madoff goes to jail for his Ponzi scheme, which was much better than this gold Ponzi scheme because he paid the people. If you were with Madoff and you gave him 100 grand, he gave you 15%. Every year you got your 15% for 10, 20 years, which is more than I can say when they try to crash the gold and silver price, which is totally immoral. I mean, you're paying $5,000 for an ounce of gold now. Well, let's say 2,000. When we started buying, and then you'd shatter it down to 1,800 for no reason. It's a future price. So the miners are the real idiots here because they sold it way too cheap. And JP Morgan is guilty as hell, as he always is. He's the crookedest bank in the world, JP Morgan. They're terrible. I'm not sure if they sunk the Titanic or not, but I think they were in on it. Like JPP Morgan in 1912 or 13 avoided the Titanic knowing it was going to sink. But then they said he died a year later. So I think they were probably behind. He knew it was going to sink, so they were involved in it. But this is the problem. You must understand the game's fixed. You must understand Comex is a joke. You must understand BRICS is trying to price it physically. You need the bar to price it, but they still haven't really priced it. You must understand gold and silver are worth a lot more than it's showing now. And you're going, well, why isn't it going up? Oh, it's coming down. What happened? Oh my God, what should I do? Nothing, just keep buying. The real value of gold and silver, I'm telling you, the real value of gold's probably 20, 25,000. And the real value of silver is probably 5. And it's based on physical. It's based on supply and demand, that what people want. There's a huge demand for gold and silver. So that would force the price up, and there's a very small supply. So why wouldn't it be more expensive? And that's basically what you're looking at. And that's what you're trying to do. So it's worth more because they're trying to sell you on the idea of the paper to keep the whole Ponzi scheme is to keep you out of gold and silver. So you'll buy stocks because that's what the banks make money on. They don't make money on you buying gold and silver. They make money on the commission that you buy a stock or a bond or a real estate trust. Real estate trust is just a bunch of mortgages combined. And then since they charge more for the mortgage, they can give you a higher rate of interest on a real estate trust. As the attack on Wall Street guy learned, but once everybody stops paying their mortgage, they just delist it and fuck anybody that's in it. The stocks, it's going to crash, but as long as Apple is still in business, then Apple will, the stock will have value. It'll just have a lot less value. Nobody's going to pay $1,600 for a phone when the shit hits the fan. They're going to be worried about eating. Or the Apple TV and the Amazon TV. It's funny how they're all getting into TV And it's funny how they're pushing these pay services. I don't have any of them. I have one, Netflix. I got YouTube on my TV, and I got to go through all these stupid ads. And I've got Tubi and Pluto, and I got an antenna, so I got the regular and nothing. I pay $15 for Netflix, and that's it. I'm not going to pay to see phony sports that's fixed, that the players aren't even trying. That brings us to the All-Star games. All right, you got football. You can't even have an All-Star game, so you've created this flag football instead. Which, what does that have to do with an All-Star game? I doubt anybody watches it. The hook in watching football is we bet on it. If we didn't bet on it, we wouldn't watch it. Maybe college, but not pro. Pro football is so bad now. Don't hit the helm, don't hit the quarterback. Let's call 55 penalties. Yeah, that was holding. The guy was in, or was he out? Is it a touchdown or is it not? You keep killing the flow of the game. I want to watch the game. I don't want to watch commercials. I don't want to watch the refs sit there, take 20 minutes to decide. I don't want to have a touchdown, and I can't cheer that we got the touchdown. Oh, wait, we got to wait. Was he in or not? And all that shit. They're ruining the game. And as one of the Whitlock says, the ratings are fake. They're not really that high. Then you got these stupid games in London and Germany and now Australia and Brazil. What, are you kidding me? You had stupid kickoffs. You're changing the game, but not for the better. Again, you're dating a girl, and then there's another girl, and should you trade up? Should you trade? Only if that benefits you, right? If the other girl is just as nice and just as pretty, but treats you better than you gain, then it's worth it. If she doesn't, it's not worth it. But you don't trade to trade. You trade because it's better. Or she might do that to you. She'll leave you for another guy, and then she's got to hope the other guy has the same value as you. So everything's kind of like in value. And the football has made changes that don't make any. They're not better. They're worse. The kickoff is just stupid. And then you have, like I said, they've ruined the game. All these running quarterbacks who suck, and these coaches who are to get fired every year. You had 10 coaches fired this year. So how's that working? Hiring minorities or hiring whatever, hiring idiots, basically. I mean, the league sucks. The product sucks. The NBA sucks. The NBA has 30 teams, and they can't find 10 guys to draft. When Bill Lambert got drafted by Cleveland, there was 13 rounds because he was the 13th round pick. Because they played 4 years at college. And so there's a lot of colleges. So basketball is the easiest sport. You shoot this big, you dribble a ball and you shoot it into a hole. Hockey is crazy. Baseball, you got to be able to hit this fast pitch. And football is a very physical game. Basketball is the easiest of all. And in basketball, so there'd be a lot of good players. The thing is, normally you've got to be tall. Right, you got to be 6'2", 6'5", 7 foot, like Wilt. You get Muggsy Bogues once in a while, Tiny Archibald once in a while. They got to be very good at handling the ball. But now you've got 2 rounds of drafts. You can't even find 30 players to draft. In all these colleges, you can't find 30 players. How sad is that? You've got your guys that play 1 year and get drafted and then play in the G League, and they suck and you never hear about them again. The only good ones are the guys that maybe play 3 or 4 years, but then you've got this NIL where they've got to learn a new offense everywhere they go. So you're very rare now to have one guy play 4 years at Michigan or Michigan State or UCLA. You had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played, he was 4 years at UCLA, but he couldn't play as a freshman. And then Bill Walton played 4 years. And now these guys would be, Kareem would play 1 year. His sophomore year, they'd win the title, and then he'd go to Texas Tech because they could pay him more. I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous. So you don't learn your skills. That's like switching jobs, right? You go to one job, you get used to the people, you get used to the systems, you know where to go, and then you go to another job. And you got to learn it all over again. You got to meet the people, hope they're nice. You got to learn their systems. Hopefully you can use the computer. I see a lot of ads now where can you do this computer? I don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. It was PeopleSoft, Oracle, SAP. And now and they're all shit computers that they're giving you. I saw one job, do you know AI? And you're like, fuck no, you're going to teach me. So I think there's a big thing. You come in and you know it. We're not going to train you or show you anything, which is really stupid. That's a recipe for failure. I mean, I've been watching a lot of poker, and they're like, what do they say? Well, I just played a lot. I learned the game by playing hours and hours of poker. Phil Ivey, I paid 13 hours a day for 5 years or whatever. And even then, it's not going to help you. So you want me to go into the job and you're not going to show me what I need to know? Good luck on that. But you can see in football all the different coaches because they're not qualified. You're hiring minorities. You're not hiring qualified coaches. Look at this guy, the Raider coach, right? You bring on this Kubiak, whose father was a coach for Denver, won one Super Bowl. He was okay. He learned under Shanahan. He was a quarterback. He learned under Shanahan. And how good do you think Kubiak's going to be? He's never been a head coach. From what I can see, he's coached at 5 or 6 different years, 5 or 6 different teams. He'll be lucky to at most, he'll make 2 years. And they won't win anything. Right? That's what they'll do. And that'll be the problem, right? Clint Kubiak has 0 chance of being successful, especially on the Raiders, a dysfunctional team with a terrible owner. They have Brock Bowers. We don't even know how good Gentry is. And they have no defense. And we'll see who they draft, and we'll see who their free agents are. This guy has 0 chance of being successful. So what are you doing? You're hiring a coach that's in over his head. It has no chance. And then another team will take him, and another team will take him, and he'll go coach the Giants. And look at Harbaugh. Baltimore finally gets sick of losing, not even making the playoffs this year. Should have fired him 5-6 years ago. He could never beat KC, and last year he couldn't beat Buffalo 2 years ago. And the Giants pick him up like he's the greatest coach there is. Oh, now we're going to be good. We have a coach who, he never won a big game. I think he did win a Super Bowl. That was Joe Flacco, I think. That because he had Ray Lewis. Again, he won because he had Ray Lewis. He didn't win. He had Ray Lewis on the team. Sort of like Lawrence Taylor. Bill Parcells won because of Lawrence Taylor. And then you have our favorite, Bill Belichick, only won because he had Tom Brady. If he didn't have Tom Brady, he wouldn't have won one Super Bowl. Because Tom Brady went out there and he said, I got a safety on the right, and if I run the ball, I'm going to run into the safety and lose yards. So I'm going to switch to this play on the left. It was Tom Brady who won all those Super Bowls by switching plays, by being smart enough, by being the offensive coordinator. And he always had Tom Brady as his offensive coordinator, and that's why they won. Because the plays called by the coaches sucked. Geez, he's going to run me into two safeties. I can't do anything there. So it's the same thing I'm telling you with gold and silver. I know I'm running around, but it's all the same thing. And with gold and silver, if you understand it, I'm not going to be a genius. The gold and silver are the genius. Owning the gold and silver is the move, but the gold and silver themselves are the genius move. We'll let them go because they're very limited and a lot of people in demand, and the price will go up. So therefore, that's what we'll do. Am I a genius? No, I'm a genius for buying the gold and silver, but they're the ones playing. So I'm a genius for drafting Lawrence Taylor or Joe Montana, which they got in the third round, by the way. Tom Brady in the seventh round. How smart was New England? They didn't even take him to the seventh round, right? But he was smart enough to be able to read defenses. He was a critical thinker. That's what you should be looking at in your coach, in your quarterbacks. This is why I bitch when I say they can't read a defense. That's what reading a defense is. Being a critical thinker going, okay, I can't go to the right. The safety's there. The left looks like they're blitzing, so I should throw to the left, right where the blitzer is. Montana did it all the time. Tom Brady did it. And Drew Brees could do it, but a lot of these quarterbacks now have no idea. That's why I jump on Caleb and CJ Stroud, because they can't do it. They just go back and run around like that play that do you think you'd ever see Mahomes or Brady running backwards for 20 yards and then just launching a ball and having a miracle catch in the end zone? No, when Mahomes, he goes back to pass, he might be getting blitzed and he kind of gets away from the pressure, but he knows exactly where he's throwing and who's open. Sometimes they fool him. They take Kelsey away and then he's got to throw it to other people, but he knows exactly where he wants to go with the ball. He drops back, he's in the pocket and he throws it. He scares the shit out of you. As he gets it. Joe Burrow gets it. They know exactly where they're going to throw the ball. And that's why CJ Stroud and Caleb have no idea what they're doing out there. It's just pure luck with Caleb. He just runs around. He scrambles for 15 minutes, and then somebody gets behind the defense because they get kind of mesmerized watching him. And then instead of keeping your eye on it, there was a clip on in the Dallas-Pittsburgh Super Bowl 10, and they hit the touchdown, and Mel Blount is still staring at Drew Pearson the whole play, even while Tony Hill's running for a touchdown. He's still got his eye on Drew Pearson. And that's what I mean. These guys now, they don't do that. They watch the quarterback, they're not watching the receiver. So the receivers get behind. It's all a playground play. And Caleb throws it, and the guy catches it, and you're like, oh, what a great throw. No, he had no idea what he was doing. It was just pure luck. Winning was pure luck, and that's kind of what they do. John C., what do I think of old baseball card packs people still sell today? Okay. I don't know where we're going with that, but okay. So that's the problem I have with Caleb and a lot of the quarterbacks, Lamar. They don't know what they're doing. They can't read the defense. And if you can't read the defense, you can't get out of bad plays. If you can't get out of bad plays, you're not going to win games. You're going to take sacks. You're going to make turnovers. So you've got to really understand and read what the defense is trying to do. And that's the key point. And that's not what they're doing. So that's why I say they're not good. And that's why I say there's not a lot of quarterbacks that can read the defense as they should. Burrow and Mahomes and Stafford, Aaron Rodgers. So people laugh at Aaron Rodgers for being older. He didn't hurt you in the playoffs. He had nothing. He didn't hurt you. They couldn't do anything against, I think they played Houston. But they weren't, he wasn't, he had no help. DK Metcalf wasn't, I think they had a problem with DK Metcalf with the fan incident in Detroit, because he sat out the 2 games And they didn't. They threw him the ball like twice in the playoff game. So anyway, this is the problem. You're not. It should be quality, not quantity. And so these coaches that are getting hired are just terrible. And that's why you see 8, 9, 10 coaches being fired every year. At the end of the day, the billionaire owner wants to win. And to win, it's like hiring a CEO or a CFO who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. And they drive the business into the ground. And the guy owning the business is pretty pissed off. He fires them because he wants to make money. But they don't know what they're hiring. And you got to hire quality over quantity. We buy gold and silver is doing that. We're buying quality over quantity. We're not buying stocks. We're not buying Bitcoin, which is all bullshit, which you don't understand any of it anyway. But we buy gold and silver because that's the quality. That's the quality thing to buy. And people like trying to sell you Bitcoin and stocks and real estate trust. It's not the quality. It's the quantity. Oh, buy Apple. Well, it's worth 120 and selling for 300. Why the fuck would I buy it? Well, yeah, because everybody else is. Most of the stocks on the stock market have gone down. There's only that handful of stocks that have gone up. This $49,000 price we see, total fantasy. Just like the gold and silver is a total fantasy price the other way. It's much higher than it is. Burrow is the best at that. Okay. Old baseball card packs. It depends on the price, and you're taking a big risk. So I wouldn't invest too much. Because not only, let's say it's a 1965 pack and it's selling for $500 because you could pull a mantle out of it. There's a lot of risk because it's very hard to get a nice centered card. So you could get a mantle, but it'd be way off center. And you should not take the risk. The money should be less because of the risk. On 81 tops, you can get a Joe Montana rookie card. The odds on getting one that's perfectly centered, nice corners, are very, very difficult. So I wouldn't pay too much for the 81 tops. Now, the 82 tops, yes, I pay a little bit more because I've seen a couple of Montanas and Peytons that I have that are just perfect gem mint cards. So again, and you can get a Ronnie Lott rookie in it, a Lawrence Taylor rookie. This is the 82 tops. And I think there's a couple other Anthony Munoz or something like that. Not a Chris Collinsworth. He sucks. But basically, you can get the Montana and Peyton second-year cards, and you can get the Lawrence Taylor rookie, and like I said, the Ronnie Lott rookie, and I think there's one other rookie. Anyway, so my feeling is I'd rather look at get a mint card as long as it's ungraded. You're not going to pay too much for it. So I'd rather, if I wanted the Lawrence Taylor rookie, go buy the Lawrence Taylor rookie ungraded, and I wouldn't have to pay much. Maybe get it graded, and then I have it. So it depends on your point of view, but I'm not a big pack buyer unless there's like inserts, but usually they're expensive. So yeah, I could see getting a 65 tops, but I wouldn't pay $500 for it. There's a lot of cards that aren't worth anything, right? So I'd rather get the Willie Mays, the Mickey Mantle, the Hank Aaron out of the cards than that. Burrow is the best at it. Burrow is very good, but that's what I mean. That's who you want to bet on because he can read the defense and get out of plays. That's why you see Jared Goff. He'll say kill a lot, but he still turns the ball over a lot, and they fool him a lot, I think. I don't think he's very good at, even though he says kill the play and gives you another one, I still think that's still no good because the defense hears the kill. So they go, well, we're in this defense, and he doesn't like that. So he's changing the play out of the defense we're in. So we'll change defenses too. That's the problem with golf. Anyway, uh, yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. Let's see. So I got a 1:30 haircut. We'll see. Again, Friday the 13th. Beware. All right. Let's look at the NFL. If you look at this shit with gold, right? We come on, it's 5,000 and 49.60 before 10, up to 5,007, and then down to 49.80, and now back to 5,007. What's the price? This is totally fucked. Silver 77.84. It's been 78. What's the price? You have no idea. This is just a number pulled out of thin air, 5,006. All right. So I was watching this one, bank runs, but then I realized it was AI, so I can't watch it. Where's the Rothschilds one? So this is currency class, how the Rothschilds survived every crisis. Where's that one I wanted to show you? Well, maybe this is it. Let's see if this is the one.
I have a 134 IQ. I make less money than friends who barely passed high school. Here's what I picture this. It's 1923 in the Weimar Republic. The government could 45 billion. I never recall selling a single wealth while his neighbor holding marks was destroyed, creating a relative advantage that often became permanent. What makes these patterns particular? Picture this. It's 1920.
I don't get it. There was a nice one I was watching. Well, let's see, maybe.
Picture this. It's 1720. Across Europe, fortunes were evaporating overnight as the Mississippi.
All right, this is the Rothschilds.
Spectacular fashion.
How they survived.
Aristocrats who will picture this.
Okay, this is a pretty good.
1720, and across Europe, fortunes are evaporating overnight as the Mississippi bubble and South Sea bubble collapse in spectacular fashion. Aristocrats who were wealthy beyond measure just months earlier are now destitute. Banks are failing. Currencies are being debased. Governments are defaulting on their debts. And yet, amid this financial carnage, one family not only survives, but quietly positions itself to profit from the chaos that follows. The Rothschilds didn't invent resilience during currency collapses, but over the next 3 centuries they would refine it into something remarkable. A system of wealth preservation that would carry them through the Napoleonic Wars, the collapse of multiple European monarchies, 2 world wars, hyperinflation in multiple countries, the abandonment of the gold standard, and every major financial crisis up to the present day. The question isn't whether they were lucky or clever, though both played a role. The real question is what principles allowed a single family to maintain wealth across eras when the very definition of money kept changing beneath everyone's feet. The story begins not with wealth, but with constraint. Mayer Amschel Rothschild was born in the Frankfurt Jewish ghetto in 1744, a place where Jews faced severe restrictions on property ownership, movement, and professional opportunities. The ghetto was literally locked at night. Residents couldn't own land outside its walls. Most professions were closed to them. But one avenue remained open, dealing in coins, bills of exchange, and the complex web of credit that European commerce depended upon. Mayer apprenticed in banking in Hanover, learning not just how to assess the value of old coins, which was his initial trade, but how money moved across borders, how princes financed their armies, and how the intricate networks of debt-connected royal houses across the continent. When he returned to Frankfurt and established his own business, he did something that would become a Rothschild trademark. He didn't just trade coins, he studied the systems behind them. He understood that currencies weren't just metal or paper, they were promises backed by the credibility of the institutions that issued them. And credibility, he learned, was always subject to change. The first great test came during the Napoleonic Wars. Europe was consuming itself in conflict, and war has always been expensive. Governments needed to move money across hostile territories to pay armies, purchase supplies, and subsidize allies. Traditional banking houses struggled because borders were closing, routes were dangerous, and the political map was being redrawn constantly. Mayer Rothschild had by this time sent his 5 sons to 5 different cities: Nathan to London, James to Paris, Salomon to Vienna, Karl to Naples, and Amschel to Frankfurt. This wasn't just family expansion, it was the creation of a financial network that could operate regardless of which army controlled which territory. When the British government needed to finance the Duke of Wellington's campaign in Spain, traditional routes through enemy territory were impossible. Nathan Rothschild arranged for gold to be moved through the family network, converted into local currencies at each stage, and delivered where needed. The family made money on the transactions, certainly, but more importantly, they demonstrated something crucial. They had infrastructure that transcended national boundaries. What's often misunderstood about this period is that the Rothschilds weren't betting on outcomes. They were building systems that worked regardless of outcomes. There's a persistent myth that Nathan Rothschild made a fortune by getting advance notice of Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo and manipulating British bonds. The historical record doesn't support this dramatic version. What actually happened was more instructive. The Rothschilds had already spent years building credibility with the British government by reliably moving money when others couldn't. By the time Waterloo occurred, they were already established as essential financial infrastructure. They did profit from the war's end, but primarily because they held British government bonds that rose in value when Britain's victory became clear. A position they held because they'd been systematically building exposure to what they assessed as the more stable long-term power. The lesson wasn't about insider information. It was about infrastructure and institutional relationships surviving political upheaval. The next great test was currency debasement and the gradual shift in what money actually meant.
Most cats are chronically dehydrated because cat owners don't know these 4 things. Most cat
Shift in what money actually meant. Throughout the 1800s, European governments repeatedly debased their currencies, mixed precious metal
Inflated
content,
them.
and experimented with various forms of paper money. Each shift created winners and losers. The Rothschilds survived these transitions by following a principle that seems obvious in retrospect, but required discipline to maintain. They held diversified assets across multiple jurisdictions and didn't concentrate wealth in any single currency or sovereign promise. When they financed government bonds, they did so across multiple countries. When they held bullion, it was stored in multiple locations. When they made loans, they secured them against physical assets like mines, railways, and land whenever possible. They understood that currency was a claim on future productivity, and they positioned themselves to benefit from that productivity, regardless of what medium of exchange was currently in fashion. The late 19th century brought a different kind of test: rapid technological change and the rise of industrial wealth that dwarfed the traditional aristocratic fortunes the Rothschilds had grown up alongside. Families like the Rockefellers, Carnegies, and Vanderbilts were accumulating wealth at scales that made even the Rothschilds' holdings look modest in comparison. Some banking houses failed to adapt, remaining focused on government bonds and traditional finance, while the world economy shifted toward oil, steel, and railroads. The Rothschilds adapted by doing what they'd always done. They studied the new systems. They financed railways across Europe. They funded mining operations. They bankrolled the Suez Canal. They didn't try to compete with industrial titans in building factories, but they positioned themselves as essential facilitators of industrial expansion, the same role they'd played in financing governments. The principle remained: provide infrastructure that others need regardless of which specific ventures succeed or fail. The 20th century brought the most severe test yet. World War I destroyed 4 empires and redrew the map of Europe. The Rothschilds had significant assets in Austria, Hungary, and Russia, both of which collapsed. The Russian Revolution confiscated their properties outright. The breakup of Austria-Hungary invalidated debts and bonds they held, and yet the family survived because of geographical diversification. Losses in Eastern Europe were catastrophic for their branches there, but the London and Paris branches remained intact, and the family's practice of maintaining operations across borders meant that no single political upheaval could eliminate them entirely. Other banking families with more concentrated holdings were wiped out. The Rothschilds took severe losses but endured. Then came the even greater test of the interwar period and World War II. The 1920s saw hyperinflation destroy the German mark, turning life savings into worthless paper within months. Families who had been wealthy in 1920 were destitute by 1923.
This is what's going to happen here, and this is why we buy gold and silver. You're going to have a lot of money, but as I say, if it's in dollars, it's not worth anything. Warren Buffett has $20 billion, not worth anything. That's why I pointed out is the fact that they're saying now wealthy families went bankrupt because they kept their money in the government money instead of outside the banking system, which is gold and silver. So if you just have gold and silver, the Rothschilds didn't need to do any of that shit. They would have just had their gold and silver and watched the values go up and watched all these currencies go out because the government's printed because of all these wars, which are very expensive. So I don't know what the fuck Trump's doing with all these wars. These are extremely expensive. There's no revenue from them. It's all expense. And it's not cheap to buy a missile or a Tomahawk or a cruise missile or any of these. These are very expensive things. You got to have 500 ounces of silver in it. So they're very expensive, but you can see what they did. And that's why when they say diversify, they were in different countries, not as we would say, well, we're in stocks and bonds and real estate. If you're in the dollar, you're fucked. So get out of it. John Z, George Soros, what do you think of them? He's a loser.
Rothschild's German properties and assets lost immense value. But again, geographical diversification protected the family as a whole. The 1930s brought the Great Depression, which destroyed banks across Europe and America. The Rothschilds' emphasis on maintaining liquid assets and avoiding over-leverage helped them weather the storm in a way that banks dependent on unstable credit networks could not. And then came the ultimate test, Nazi Germany. The Rothschilds were Jewish, prominent and wealthy, making them obvious targets. The Vienna branch was forcibly dissolved, with the family forced to hand over assets in exchange for being allowed to leave. Properties across Nazi-occupied Europe were confiscated. The family lost enormous wealth, but because they maintained operations in Britain, France, and eventually re-established themselves after the war, they survived as an institution even though individuals suffered terribly and assets were seized. Other families were entirely eliminated. The Rothschilds endured by being decentralized enough that no single catastrophe could erase them. The post-war period brought yet another transformation, the end of the gold standard and the rise of pure fiat currency. For most of human history, money had been tied to something physical, whether commodity money, precious metals, or at least a promise to exchange paper for gold. The Bretton Woods system maintained a link between currencies and gold until 1971, when the United States completely abandoned gold backing for the dollar. This was a profound shift. Money became entirely a matter of government credibility and economic management. Currency collapses became less about running out of gold and more about loss of confidence in governments' ability to manage their economies. The 1970s saw stagflation, oil shocks, and rising inflation that eroded the value of cash holdings across Western economies. The Rothschilds adapted by shifting focus toward real assets, land, businesses, infrastructure investments, and equity holdings in companies that produced actual goods and services. They understood that in a fiat currency world, wealth needed to be held in claims on productivity rather than claims on government promises alone. The pattern that emerges across these centuries isn't about predicting specific events or having supernatural foresight. It's about building systems with specific characteristics. First, geographical diversification. Never concentrate all assets in one political jurisdiction, because every government eventually faces crisis or collapse. Second, asset diversification. Hold wealth across multiple forms, including real assets that produce value regardless of what happens to paper currency. Third, maintain liquidity. Always keep enough readily accessible wealth to survive short-term crises without being forced to sell assets at distressed prices.
When you're outside hiking or camping, do you have a plan to be able to drink water right off the landscape like this? I sure do.
Prices. Fourth, build institutional relationships. Become infrastructure that others depend on, so that even when regimes change, the new powers have reason to preserve rather than destroy you. Fifth, think in generations rather than quarters. Accept that some decades will bring losses if the overall trajectory across centuries is preservation and growth. What's striking is how these principles apply regardless of the specific currency regime in place. Whether money was gold coins, banknotes redeemable for silver, government bonds, or pure fiat currency, the Rothschilds survived transitions by not betting everything on any single form of money retaining value. They held real assets, maintained operations across borders, kept institutional relationships with whoever held power, and took a long view that allowed them to absorb short-term losses. When currencies collapsed around them, they had wealth in other forms and other places. When governments fell, they had relationships with successor governments. When entire economic systems transformed, they had already begun adapting to the new reality. This isn't to suggest the story is one of unbroken success, or that there's anything mystical about their survival. The family suffered enormous losses multiple times. Branches were eliminated. Individuals lost everything. There were periods of decline. And the Rothschilds of today, while still wealthy, are not the dominant financial force they were in the 19th century. Other institutions have grown larger, and the family's relative position has declined even as their absolute wealth has been preserved. But preservation itself, across this span of time and upheaval, is remarkable. Most family fortunes don't last 3 generations, let alone 3 centuries encompassing multiple complete transformations of the global financial system. The relevance to the present lies not in imitating specific Rothschild strategies, which depended on circumstances and opportunities no longer available, but in understanding the principles that allowed wealth preservation through systemic change. We live in an era of historically low interest rates, unprecedented government debt levels, and ongoing debate about the future of money itself, with discussions of digital currencies, potential inflation or deflation, and questions about the sustainability of current fiscal policies. No one knows exactly what comes next, but the Rothschild example suggests that wealth preservation through uncertain times isn't about predicting the future correctly. It's about building resilience into the structure of how wealth is held. It's about not assuming that current conditions will continue indefinitely, maintaining options across different scenarios, and accepting short-term costs to ensure long-term survival. The families and institutions that disappeared during the same centuries the Rothschilds survived often failed not because they were unlucky, but because they concentrated their bets. They assumed their government would endure, or their currency would hold value, or the system they'd grown wealthy within would continue. The Rothschilds assumed change was inevitable and built accordingly. They were prepared for their world to end repeatedly because it did end repeatedly, and each time they had enough elsewhere to begin again. That's the real lesson. Not how to get rich during currency collapse, but how to maintain continuity when everything around you is transforming.
Or buy gold. If they would have bought gold, they wouldn't have needed any of that other bullshit they just said. They'd have been fine. Let's see. Silver holders will become millionaires. It's hard to listen, but it's not all Alistair. It's comes and goes. Let's see. All right, this is about the Super Bowl. Jason Whitlock, and he says the ratings are fake. So let's listen to this.
Trust me, there was a whole committee that had to decide how is ESPN going to frame these ratings, because the ratings dropped. The ratings dropped for the Super Bowl and for Bad Bunny, and they got to spin it in some sort of way. And they fell just short of record ratings. Well, that's one way to spin it. That's one way to spin it. But if you look, and that's what a part of this show and this opening monologue is about, if you actually read the fine print, it actually tells a different story. There is no real positive spin on what just happened with the National Football League and the Super Bowl. There is no positive spin. They just fell short of record ratings. Oh, the viewership's down 2% to 124 million. And it was a boring game. You know, it just was an exciting game. If they had a better matchup and a better game, the ratings would have been better. Well, last year's Super Bowl that allegedly set all these records, the Eagles were up like 20-0 at halftime and 40-6 at some point or whatever. And so, and I get, hey, Patrick Mahomes was there, and you had Jalen Hurts, you had the black quarterback thing you could sell, the history. I get it. But I'm just telling you, if you read the fine print of the stories that are coming out and trying to spin these Super Bowl ratings, it actually tells the real story. I want to first read you something from Front Office Sports. They had, their article, Super Bowl 60 viewership down 2%, draws 125 million viewers, basically. Well, here's what the fine print actually says in the story, buried in the story. Notably, this was also the first Super Bowl with Nielsen's big data plus panel measurement process. The methodology, first introduced last September, brings in millions of additional data points from set-top boxes and smart TVs. That expanded view of the market has helped produce viewership gains across much of live sports, and particularly pro and college football, but not with the Super Bowl. Let me help you understand that piece of fine print. What that means is, since September, when we rigged up this new accounting system at Nielsen that counts all of these extra people, we've boosted up the TV ratings for football. And since September, everybody in live sports has been benefiting from this new calculation and new system that keeps producing these record ratings. First time this many million, this percentage, blah, blah. They had a system in place designed to boost the ratings of the Super Bowl. And it didn't boost the ratings of the Super Bowl. That's an indicator. That's an indicator that the NFL and the Super Bowl are losing their grip. They've become too arrogant, that the Bad Bunny thing was a mistake. That the de-emphasis of competition in all sports has been a mistake. People are finally starting to wake up to the diminished content. They're producing more content and they're giving us more content, but the content is no good. And that the NFL, if people were interpreting this properly, if they were free to explain what's happening properly, they would be telling you all today that, man, the NFL and football for the first time is running into the same problem that the NBA has had, that Major League Baseball has had, that their grip on America and American television is actually starting to slip. And they've put together these systems to conceal the fact that their product, if I had been thinking, I would have compared this to The Wire, my favorite TV show. They've stomped on the product. The heroin isn't as good as it used to be. They're having to lace it with other things to cover up for the fact that the heroin's no good. And the customers, Bubbles, and the people addicted to the National Football League and football are starting to wake up like, hey, man, I'm not getting as high as I used to off of football. And at some point in The Wire, their argument was Stringer Bell would tell people like, hey, man, that just means they'll buy more heroin. Don't get as high, just take more heroin. That's what's been going on in sports. Hey, you're not getting as high, but all the games are available to you everywhere. Because again, people like me, Peyton and Luke and Justin, you guys have no idea that there was a time when you would get 2 football games on a Sunday, and that's it. Whatever your hometown team was, and then you get another game, and that was it. The Pacers, when I was growing up, maybe they had 10 games on local TV a year. You listen to most of the games on the radio. Again, there was a time when the product was scarce. Now they put the product everywhere. They've removed the competition from the product, but it's more readily available.
From new beginnings to milestone celebrations, reliable energy keeps your life on track. That's where consumers...
From the product, but it's more readily available. The drug that the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, that all these sports, it's all been stomped on in the name of inclusivity and making the game more feminine and more accessible for women. They've stomped on the actual competition product, and that's why LeBron James doesn't want to play games anymore. And I'll get to that. I'll connect that dot here in a minute. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But I want to read some more from the fine print. This is from The Athletic, which is the New York Times, making the exact same point, but doing it more subversively and a bit more cleverly. This is all being handled with kid gloves because this whole myth, and you got to understand the importance of the myth that they're selling, that, hey, man, we can feminize everything, make things less masculine, and they'll all be just as appealing as they used to be. That's the lie they're telling you. And that's why these Super Bowl ratings are very important. They want you to believe that this stomped on product, this diminished product, this product that we've loaded up with all these different agendas, they want to tell you, they want to lie to you and say, man, it's just as potent as it's ever been. There's more people watching. They're lying. This was the 4th Super Bowl since 1971. It's only happened 4 other times, or 3 other times, where it captured less than 40% of the American audience. I believe this one caught 37.3 or somewhere, 37% of the American audience, I think. 4th time since 1971 that's happened. The Super Bowl used to capture 50, 52%, 53% of the American audience. Its grip is lessening. Hold on, correct me if I'm wrong. Did I say, yeah, it is less than 40%. But the Super Bowl used to capture much more percentage of the American audience. But I'm sorry, let me go back to the fine print, Luke. I'm confusing you. This is in the New York Times article. In falling short of last season's mark, the game's average audience for Sunday was potentially influenced by a largely listless game on the field. Off the field, the audience numbers incorporated a more expansive reporting methodology from ratings partner Nielsen that was implemented in 2025. The new system more accurately captures the full audience picture, if resulting in across the board higher than historical numbers for a range of sports TV properties over the past 6 months. That last sentence, in my view, intentionally confusing. They're trying to make the point in their celebratory article, or their article, I wouldn't call it celebratory, but in their article analyzing and making excuses for why the ratings dip. Trust me, there are hundreds of millions of dollars riding on these ratings. Hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, riding on keeping the perception that the NFL and the Super Bowl is just as strong as ever. No, it's not. No, it's not. The NFL has a real problem, and they are trying to cover it up, and they're using their media partners to put out these vague articles that don't champion. Hey, we didn't break records, but we came close to breaking records. And if the game had been better, if we had this star, they're making excuses. This system was tweaked in September to produce record ratings. And not only did it not produce record ratings, the ratings actually fell.
So I thought that was pretty clever. He got into it good. Do I ever watch Jake the Awake? No, I have no idea what that is. What do I think of George Soros? I've given that, commented on him a lot. He's a Nazi. He's a criminal. He was behind breaking Britain in 1991. He's an evil man. He's a communist. Well, he's a Nazi, so he's a fascist. He wants the U.S. to get destroyed. He controls a lot of governments and putting in judges, and he backs a lot of people, Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. He's a very evil man. He's Jewish, but he helped the Nazis find the Jews in World War II, and they all went to their deaths. So it's pretty bad. Let's see. There was one I wanted to show you on the Roman Empire. There was one. It went through everything from the Roman Empire to everything. The fall of Constantinople, but that wasn't it. It was, I don't know what it was called. I guess Bad Bunny is a stupid rapper. So part of what happened was the NFL had a deal with Apple, because Apple Prime, and just get Apple to pay them to show games, because apparently the NFL is in big trouble. And they needed a performer because Apple wanted to sell his music. Now they can say, oh, he was in the Super Bowl. So besides the fact half of it was in Spanish, I understand. So basically, Apple wanted Bad Bunny to sell music on Apple. And they made a deal with the NFL that if you do Bad Bunny, we'll buy games, and we'll pay you for it. So they made a deal with Apple, and that's why Bad Bunny was on, and it killed ratings. And again, the NFL, I guess a lot of these guys are broke. They're all billionaires, but they keep selling money to these things. So anyway, that's what that whole thing was about, Bad Bunny. I don't know where this one is on the Roman Empire. Maybe it's this one.
If your neck looks like this, you need to watch this video. When you sit at your desk or use your phone, your head protrudes forward.
And picture this. Picture this.
Oh yeah, this is
It's
the one.
1920.
Yeah, this is the one I want. He talks about money, the assets. Well, it's called the assets governments can't touch, which is basically gold and silver, land, and things that are productive. That's what they can. So if you have land that produces food, they really can't take that from you, although I would think they could. But it goes back to the Roman times, and then it goes all the way up. But I don't know. I won't play it, at least not today. But basically what he's saying is just own gold and silver. We don't own land, and we don't own factories and things like that. But it's Roman. Let's just play the Roman part. We'll just go to the Roman Empire.
In the Weimar Republic, and a German pensioner clutches a lifetime of savings in paper marks, enough to have bought a comfortable house just 5 years earlier. Now, that same stack of bills won't buy a loaf of bread. Across the city, his neighbor, a jeweler who converted his wealth into gold coins in 1919, walks into a shop and trades a single coin for a month's worth of groceries. 2 men, 2 choices, 2 completely different outcomes. The difference between them wasn't luck or genius. It was understanding which assets survive when governments lose control of their currencies. Throughout history, certain forms of wealth have proven...
So I want to just talk about that. So what do I hear? Well, you can't take silver to the grocery store. This guy just did, right? He bought a month's worth of food by taking a gold coin at that time in the 1920s Germany to the store, and they took it. What I'm trying to tell you is when the shit hits the fan, believe me, people will take gold and silver. You don't see it now, but we're not there yet. We're very close to it. So right now we're still in the accumulation cycle, is to quote the idiot, whoever that guy was. You were holding it for later. So it's like going to the grocery store and you put steak and chicken in your freezer. It's cheap. It's on sale. I'm going to put it in my freezer and eat it later. And that's what you're doing with gold and silver. I got it to use later. And now we're watching the price go up and we're all excited. Hey, great. It's 5,000 an ounce. You know, it was much cheaper, and silver was $25. It's now close to 80. God knows what the real price is, but close to 80. And that's what we're doing. We're saving our gold and silver for later, as we're saving our food in the freezer, or we're saving chips and popcorn and whatever if we can't find food. I don't believe we won't be able to find food. I believe that Walmart and Sam's Club and Kroger's will have food. So that's why I find it hard to believe these grocery stores aren't going to be this unprepared about it. So I don't buy that. I believe we'll be able to use it. We'll just be able to use our gold and silver. They'll start taking that. But that's the point I wanted to make here. The guy did, he didn't have dollars because they were worthless. He was out of this because this was worthless. But you know what? He had gold and silver, and he was able to eat. So keep that in mind. You want to get out of the dollar because it's already worthless, basically. And if you can Rumpelstiltskin it to gold and silver, then you're prepared for, as Egon says, wealth preservation. All right.
Nearly impossible for failing states to destroy or confiscate, while others evaporate overnight. The pattern repeats with such consistency that understanding it reveals something fundamental about the nature of value itself. To understand why some assets survive collapse while others don't, we need to go back to the basic problem governments face when they're desperate for resources. When a state needs money, it has essentially 3 options: tax what people earn, seize what people own, or debase the currency and inflate away debts. Each method has been tried countless times, and each has natural limits. Taxation requires a functioning bureaucracy and compliant citizens. Direct seizure requires knowing where assets are and having the force to take them. But currency debasement, printing more money to pay debts, requires only control of the printing press. This is why it's been the most common choice throughout history, from Roman emperors.
And that's what we know. And we're already playing that game. We know the dollar's not worth anything. However, we can still go to the gold and silver guy, take our dollar that's not worth anything, and buy gold and silver with it, and we're fine. So we know that. Comex, in my mind, is keeping the price down so these other countries can continually buy gold and silver till there isn't any. That's what I think Comex is doing, because there's no other explanation what they're doing. Why is silver down from 84 yesterday to 77? Why would it get shorted? So they can buy more silver. The defense contractors, all these industrial, and then us, so we can get out of the dollar, buy silver. That's why it's cheaper, so that people can buy it. Clearly, there's no other explanation you can come up with. Oh, they're making money on the derivatives, on the options? Yeah, I don't think so. They're short, and then they get screwed because they can't get out because the price goes up. So the only explanation is that the price is down so they can buy more. Sort of like I say with my Canadian club, I'm going to sell it for $100. Oh, wait, they're going to go on Comex and put options and make it $5, and they'll buy it for $5, which is the whole point of what's going on. So if they lower the price of silver down to 77, they can buy it at 77 because they missed it at 25 for 5 years, like a bunch of idiots. If only we could go back in that time machine, I'd go back and it's, silver was $1.25 at one point, and just buy the shit out of it and buy the shit out of gold at $35 an ounce. And now come back to today or even a year from now and see the real real value. But that's going to save us, is that we'll have the gold and silver, because the dollar is going to collapse, because it always does. All right, back to the Romans.
Shaving silver from coins to modern governments, running the printing presses day and night. The challenge for citizens isn't avoiding taxation or seizure alone, it's protecting wealth from all three simultaneously. The Roman Empire provides our first clear case study. In the year 64 AD, Emperor Nero faced a financial crisis after the Great Fire of Rome. His solution was to reduce the silver content of the denarius, the empire's standard coin, from 95% pure silver to around 85%. He could mint more coins from the same amount of silver, paying his debts with debased currency. Later emperors continued this practice. By 265 AD, the denarius contained only 5% silver. What happened to...
Wait a second before I lose this thought. So he said he took the silver out of the denarius, but he paid debt with the denarius that was worth less. It wasn't 100% silver. It was 80% silver. That's what we're doing with this. If you owe your house, a car payment, your credit card, this is being inflated. So when the U.S. says, well, we owe 39 trillion, we're going to inflate our way out of it, what they mean is this will be worthless. So I owe $200 on a credit card, so I'll give them this, which is absolutely worthless now. So I'm going to pay them back with $200 inflated dollars that, the value is much cheaper. And that's why I warn you, that's what I'm telling Bobby. This is exactly, Bobby gets $1 million a year, but this is his problem. The money he's getting is inflated money. It's not worth anything. He tried to get gold. So what I tell him is take the money and go buy gold with it. Take the $1 million or whatever he gets after taxes and buy gold and silver with it. And then it's really worth a lot more and it'll go up. But if he just takes his $1 million in fiat money that is inflated, it's not worth anything. So that's that whole point when they say we're going to inflate our way out of it. They're going to make the money worthless. And the 39 trillion they'll pay back. Well, who are they paying it back to? Their own pension funds, and they own the Fed and people who buy U.S. treasuries, the Russians, the Chinese. the Japanese, the British, the Germans. These people aren't going to want to get dollars that are worthless. Hence, this is the Russians' point. It's not worth anything. We don't want it. This is why they're all selling their bonds back to the U.S. So when China sells $1 trillion in bonds back to the U.S., it's because they don't want to get paid in worthless money, right? They go, this isn't worth anything. I don't want to have it. That's why you can't get bonds. Nobody wants to buy your bonds because the money's worthless. But those who have already bought the bonds are getting out of them, and they're trading it in, and then they're buying gold with it. That's why China's got so much gold, as does Russia and Japan and all these other countries in U.S. debt are like, I don't want it. It's not worth anything. And then they're buying gold. And that's why they're kind of holding the gold price and silver price down a little. As they get the money, they can buy more gold and silver. And if you control the price a little bit, they can't control it all, but they're keeping it down a little bit, is to get it bought. Once it's all bought, the price will never, it'll hit the roof. It will hit the roof. It's just, we're waiting, but it's very, very soon. And very, very soon the dollar will be inflated to nothing. And you're going to buy oranges at $200 for an orange. Excuse me. You'll need that wheelbarrow. Let's go into the wheelbarrow business. We'll start selling wheelbarrows. And but we will only take silver for the wheelbarrow. We will not take heavily inflated dollars. Anyway, I just didn't want to forget that point.
Roman citizens during this 3-century debasement tells us everything about which assets survived monetary collapse. Those who held their savings in denarii, trusting the government's stamp on the coin, watched their purchasing power slowly vanish. A single denarius that bought a day's worth of wheat in 64 AD bought almost nothing by 265 AD. But Romans who held assets outside the monetary system, land that produced grain, livestock, tools, and especially pure silver or gold separate from official coins, maintained their wealth. The empire couldn't debase metal that wasn't in coin form. They couldn't inflate away the value of productive farmland. These assets existed independent of government promises. This pattern accelerated during the crisis of the 3rd century, from 235 to 284 AD, when the empire nearly collapsed. More than 50 men claimed the imperial throne in just 49 years, each needing to pay armies to secure power. The silver content of coins dropped so low they were essentially bronze with a silver wash. Official prices became meaningless. The economy reverted increasingly to barter and payment in goods. During this chaos, one class of Romans not only survived but prospered. Large landowners. They possessed the one asset the government couldn't easily debase, confiscate, or inflate away. Land produced food regardless of what happened to the currency. 1,000 acres of wheat fields had the same productive capacity, whether the denarius contained 90% silver or 2%. The great estates of the late empire, which would eventually evolve into the medieval manor system, were built partly on this foundation, wealth that existed outside a collapsing monetary framework.
And that's why we'll be able to use silver to buy food, because it won't really be barter. It will just change the currency. That's why. So when people say, "Are you gonna sell your gold? What fiat currency are you gonna get into?" That is the currency. These people took the silver, went to the farmer, and bought food. And so, if you have a farm, then you're probably okay. But basically, just as easy. Just buy the gold and silver, and then you'll be able. That's why I'm saying you'll buy a house with 2 ounces of gold. That's a perfect example. I have the house, but I don't have any. I can't eat, and I don't know what they did for heat and air conditioning, but let's just say I can't. I'm starving, even though I own a house. And then we come up to him and say, "Well, we'll give you 2 ounces of gold for your house," and he gets the gold, and now he can eat. And he says, "Fine." That's what I mean with 2 ounces of gold. We'll give you the house, because the value of the dollar drops out. So everything that's valued in dollar is worthless. The house is worthless. The car is worthless. Going to the grocery store, you won't be able to use the dollars. Then they'll change and they'll start accepting silver, and you'll buy a month's worth of food with 1 ounce of silver. So that is the whole part of the reason we're doing it. And they now all they need to do is come out with a new currency backed by gold or silver. So if the U.S. were smart enough to do it, and I don't think they are, with George Soros and Scott Simpson, the secretary of bullshit, um, that's all you would need. So then you would sell your gold for the new currency and use the new currency to buy food and pay your bills and clothes and stuff like that. And that's what you need. You got to buy gas, you need a car, all that stuff. So that'll be what should happen is they should come out with a new currency. Are they smart enough to? I don't know. I question it. I don't know what they're waiting for, but the dollar is worthless. So I think what Trump's trying to do is break the dollar and then use 39 trillion of monopoly money to pay off the debt. And I don't think it's going to succeed because as it gets to that point, everybody holding the debt's going to want the dollar. But that's what they mean by inflating the debt away, is by printing the money until it's worthless and then using the worthless money to pay off the 39 trillion. That's their master plan. What a bunch of geniuses. And then guess what? Nobody will trade with us because they don't want anything to do because they got fucked.
Moving forward 1,000 years, we find another instructive case in medieval England during the 100 Years' War.
Oh boy.
Between 1337 and 1453, English kings needed enormous sums to fight in France. They borrowed heavily from Italian banking houses and wealthy English merchants. When debts came due and tax revenue fell short, kings faced a choice: default on debts or seize assets.
Guys, I finally found a cat fountain that scores a perfect 10 on my checklist. First off, it's completely wired.
Kings faced a choice: default on debts or seize assets. Edward III in 1345 effectively defaulted on loans from the Bardi and Peruzzi banks of Florence, bankrupting both institutions and triggering a financial crisis across Europe. Later, English monarchs took a different approach. They seized assets directly. In 1290, Edward I expelled all Jews from England and confiscated their property. In the 1530s, Henry VIII dissolved the monasteries and seized their vast landholdings, perhaps 20% of all land in England. What's revealing is which assets the crown could easily take and which resisted seizure. Land registered in official records was simple to confiscate. The king just declared it his, and possessed both the legal authority and military force to make it stick. The same was true for large accumulations of wealth held in banks or known repositories. But portable, concealable assets like gold and silver coins, jewelry, and gemstones could disappear. Merchant families who saw confiscation coming could scatter their wealth, bury it, or smuggle it abroad. The transaction costs for the government to find and seize 1,000 hidden pouches of gold coins were prohibitive. This created a clear lesson. Assets that were registered, immobile, or held in known institutions were vulnerable, while portable, divisible assets that could be held anonymously offered protection. The Spanish Empire.
Keep your money out of the banks. That's why I say that. That's the whole point of it. If we have gold, I got silver. Nobody knows I got it. I have it. Thank you. Where if it's in the bank steals it from me. They can close your account. The stocks, they can close your account. The real estate trust, they can just delist it. So you have to understand and keep out of put your money in a safety deposit box in a bank. You're screwed because it's in the bank and the bank will steal it because they're the bank. They can do that. So that's really what you got to be careful about. That's why you hold gold and silver physical, not in an ETF, not in a stock. You hold it physical. This is the Roman Empire. This is the British Empire. We're in Spain now and France and the England and the US. It's all the same. When the government has to start admitting they lost, that's the problem. And that's really what happens. All right, one more little segment and I'm off to get a haircut.
Another perspective on this dynamic. After conquistadors found vast silver deposits in Potosi in 1545, Spain flooded Europe with silver. Between 1500 and 1650, European silver stocks increased perhaps eightfold. This should have made Spain the richest nation in Europe, and initially it seemed to. But something unexpected happened. Prices in Spain rose faster than anywhere else, and Spanish manufacturing became uncompetitive. The silver flowing through the Spanish economy inflated prices while not creating lasting productive capacity. Meanwhile, merchants in Amsterdam, Antwerp, and London, who received Spanish silver in trade but invested it in ships, trading companies, and manufacturing infrastructure, built wealth that compounded. The Spanish crown could mine silver, but it couldn't force that silver to stay in Spain or force Spanish prices to remain stable. Wealth flowed to wherever it was most productive. The Dutch merchants who took Spanish silver and built the Dutch East India Company created an asset that generated returns independent of any single government's monetary policy. By 1669, when the Spanish Empire was in clear decline, the Dutch East India Company was the most valuable company on earth. The lesson wasn't that silver was a poor store of value. It was that productive assets, businesses, infrastructure, and human capital outperformed precious metals over time, especially when those assets could operate across borders beyond any single government's complete control. This brings us to the French Revolution and the assignat disaster, one of history's clearest examples of government currency destruction. In 1789, revolutionary France faced bankruptcy. The solution proposed was elegant in theory: confiscate all church lands, representing perhaps 10% of France's territory, and issue paper currency called assignats backed by this land. Citizens could use assignats to buy the confiscated land, and as they did, the currency would be retired, theoretically preventing inflation. The problem was that the government kept printing assignats far beyond the value of the land backing them. Between 1789 and 1796, the government issued assignats worth perhaps 45 billion livres against land worth maybe 3 billion. The predictable result was hyperinflation. By 1796, assignats had lost 99% of their value. A paper note.
And that's where you get Les Miserables from. That's what's happening now. They print more dollars than we had gold. Hyperinflation. They printed more ignorance than they had land. Hyperinflation. That's the point. What you've done, you've printed $150 trillion, far more than the demand for the dollars. Hyperinflation, the value of the dollar is worthless. So I like these examples. I really like this because it kind of explains, and it's always inflation. The Romans, the Turks, the Spanish, here's the French. It's the same playbook. We print too much money and then it becomes worthless. But the only thing you can't print is silver and gold. You can't print it. So it never becomes worthless. That's why it's been around 5,000 years. You can't inflate it. Therefore, it never loses its value. And that's the beautiful part of gold and silver.
Bought a horse in 1790 wouldn't buy a horseshoe in 1796. But once again, a clear pattern emerged in who survived the collapse. Peasants and farmers who owned their land, or who used early assignats to buy confiscated church land, came through the crisis reasonably intact. Land still produced grain, grapes, and cattle, regardless of the currency's value. Urban workers and pensioners who held their savings in assignats were destroyed. The professional classes and merchants who converted assignats into portable gold and silver, or into claims on foreign assets, preserved their wealth. And here we see a crucial distinction. The French government could print unlimited assignats, but it couldn't print farmland or gold mines. It could destroy the paper currency, but it couldn't destroy the productive capacity of the nation's fields or the intrinsic value of precious metals. The American experience with continental currency during the Revolutionary War reinforces this pattern. Between 1775 and 1779, the Continental Congress issued paper currency to finance the war, with no gold or silver backing. The phrase, "not worth a continental," entered American vocabulary because the currency collapsed so completely. By 1781, continental currency had lost essentially all value. George Washington wrote in 1779 that a wagon load of money will scarcely purchase a wagon load of provisions. Yet the revolution succeeded, and American wealth wasn't destroyed. What happened? Americans who held land, livestock, and tools maintained their productive capacity throughout the currency collapse. Farmers who grew wheat didn't become poor because the continental dollar failed. They simply stopped accepting continentals and reverted to barter, or demanded payment in gold or silver coin. Merchants with claims on British or European accounts maintained wealth outside the American monetary system. Thomas Jefferson could write expansively about agrarian virtue, partly because landowners like himself had wealth that didn't depend on government currency. The infrastructure of wealth, the farms, mills, ships, and workshops, survived the monetary collapse intact. What died was the paper claim system denominated in continentals. The pattern becomes more complex but ultimately consistent when we examine the American Civil War. The Confederacy printed paper currency aggressively, and predictable inflation followed. By 1865, Confederate dollars were worthless, but the Union also printed paper, the greenbacks, and they too inflated significantly during the war, though not as catastrophically as Confederate currency. The key difference was outcome. The Union won, and its government survived, so greenback holders eventually saw their currency stabilize and maintain value. Confederate currency holders lost everything. This reveals another dimension to asset survival. Government currencies depend ultimately on the survival of the government itself. Confederate bonds and currency became worthless not just because of inflation, but because the Confederate government ceased to exist. No institution remained to honor the claims, but Southern land, though devastated by war, still existed and eventually recovered value. A plantation burned to the ground was nearly worthless in 1865, but the land itself could be rebuilt. By the 1880s, those same acres were producing cotton again. The physical asset survived what the financial claim couldn't. The German hyperinflation of 1921 to 1923 provides perhaps the most studied case of currency collapse in modern history. The mark's value disintegrated so rapidly that workers demanded payment twice daily so they could spend money before it lost more value. A postage stamp that cost less than 1 mark in 1918 cost 50 billion marks by October 1923. The psychological and social trauma was profound, and the economic lessons were stark. Germans who held bank accounts denominated in marks were wiped out. A life insurance policy that would have supported a family comfortably in 1918 wouldn't buy a newspaper in 1923. Bonds, mortgages, and pensions all became worthless, but certain assets preserved wealth through the hyperinflation. Real estate maintained value because buildings and land had utility independent of the currency. A factory that produced goods could adjust its prices daily and maintain operations. Foreign currency and gold maintained purchasing power because they existed outside the mark system. Art, jewelry, and other portable valuables could be sold for foreign currency or used in barter. The pattern was brutally clear. Anything denominated in marks was destroyed, while anything with intrinsic value or utility independent of marks survived. The German middle class, heavily dependent on savings accounts, insurance policies, and government bonds, was devastated. Industrial owners and those who'd converted paper wealth to real assets early survived, or even prospered. One survivor recalled selling a single silver coin inherited from his grandfather to buy food for a month, while his neighbor, a government clerk with a pension, starved despite nominally receiving regular payment.
And that is the lesson of the class. It's the lesson I've been teaching for 5 years. You will go broke. Warren Buffett's $2 billion in monopoly money will not save him. What will save him is gold and silver, a productive land that produces food. Well, we're not going to be farmers, but that's the point. So as long as you have the gold and silver, when the dollar collapses, they'll still have food, but they won't take the dollar. So things in dollars, your house, your car is worthless. I mean, the house will have a value. It'll have the intrinsic value of what we value it with gold, but otherwise it will not have a value. And that's the key. And that's the bottom line. As Stone Cold has always said, you must understand the dollar will go out. And most people are like, no, it won't. Talked to a guy yesterday in the sauna. He's like, well, I got a pension from Ford and Social Security. I'm doing okay. I'm old. Da, 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 da. And I go, well, just change it to gold and silver. You won't have to worry about anything. Well, I got money in the stock market. When the stock market collapses, then what are you going to do? And that will collapse because they will be in dollars. So everything in dollars. And I use this as the Titanic. The whole ship goes down. If you're on deck 2, 3, 4, or 5, you're still going down. Only people in the lifeboat survive. And this is our lifeboat, this in gold. And why it gets frustrated is because we don't know what the real value is, but at the end of the day, we don't really care. I'll take the 1 ounce of silver and buy food for a month. I'll have my car, so it won't matter. I'll have to get gas. I'll use silver for that. I want to go on a trip and get out of here. I'll use silver. And really, if you would have gotten out of Germany and into Austria or Switzerland, where they taken your Deutschmarks and bought Swiss francs with it, you'd have been fine, because only the Deutschmark went bankrupt, right? So it really wasn't the economy, it was the money, because it got inflated. It became worthless. You got a $39 trillion debt and you got money that you're printing like shit through a goose. That money does not have value. We're seeing a very little part of it going to the grocery store and paying $5 for Oreos. But that's the point. So then you're going to be happy you're in gold and silver, not in ETFs, not in stocks, not in Bitcoin. Bitcoin will have no value because it's worth monopoly money. No matter what it's worth, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, it's in monopoly money. When the monopoly money crashes, what's the Bitcoin going to be worth? Nothing, because Bitcoin's not real, will not have a value. So this was a very good video. I like this comment. It's criminal to steal money, but it's perfectly fine to steal the value of people's money. So I will leave you with that. I got a haircut. I don't know if this was Alyssa texting me or not, probably. Let's look at what our gold and silver are at. Silver 77.51, but we know it's bullshit. And gold got up to 50.25, and now it's 50.14. What's the real price of gold and silver? We have no idea. It's none of these. It's not even close to this. My best formula is multiply by 10. So gold's 50,000 and silver 777. But why is silver 77? Why is somebody shorting it? It makes no sense. So the whole thing's just ridiculous. Alyssa. So she's asking, when's my haircut? It's at 1:30. So it is at 1:30. So I gotta get to the bank because she will not take credit cards. I don't know what this my hairdresser is thinking. She doesn't want to pay the 3% on $25 is about 70 cents. So you're making me go to the bank to get money, and then I take it out of your tip, my time and energy to go there instead of just coming. Anyway, it's 1:30, so I got about 5-10 minutes, and then I will go. Anyway, that's just keep buying the gold and silver. You'll buy your bread. You'll buy all your food. And the key thing is, when you ask me, you're not doing it the profit take, because you don't want to get back in dollars that are going to be worthless. Your dollar's worthless. This has no value. This and this. I keep saying it, and people keep not believing me. And so I found this video. I said, well, okay, don't believe me, but see what happened. And so but it's happened in every country. For some reason, they go to war and they inflate their money because wars are expensive, and then the money's worthless. And then they have all these revolutions. Les Miserables comes out, the French Revolution, Spain, the Dutch East India Company ends up being on Pirates of the Caribbean, the Romans. So everybody, the Greeks before them. So they all, the problem is fundamentally, they don't understand printing the money. They go into debt and they don't want to tax you and they can't confiscate you. So they end up printing the money and inflating it, which is what we're doing now. 39 trillion in debt. You can't ignore it. You can't say, well, it's not going to happen. It's not going to cause anything. Yeah, it will. And nobody will want your money, and the money will be worthless. And then you're going to go to the grocery store. They're not going to take it. They'll just trade for silver with it, right? They'll barter it. So that's the big problem. So anyway, that's about it. So I showed you the thing. The NFL is bullshit. So is the NBA. Their ratings are terrible. And their ratings are going down, but they're hiding it. I told you there was something that they like the national championship game had the highest ratings or high ratings. And I said, well, how do you know they did? And now they're saying it's fake. That Nielsen is having fake ratings to make it look good. A lot of it's for the advertisers. The advertisers will think they can charge more for commercials. So they'll say, wow, it's hitting 10 million people instead of 5. Yeah, I'll pay. So that's the big Ponzi scheme. I'd be suing the NFL after hearing this news if I am paying a higher advertisement. Plus you have the league watered down. There was a thing Whitlock had on another one where he's talking about, the league's expanding. Like it's 30 teams. I think they want to go to 32. They can't find 30 players now. Half these teams are terrible. They think they're tanking. They're not tanking. There's not enough good players around, right? I mean, you get 5 or 6 guys in the draft, and after that, there's no good players. So these teams aren't taking. I hate that expression. Yeah, I can see LeBron sitting out and stuff like that, but the teams aren't tanking. The players are terrible. They're like, I'm not going to play. Then you get into these no all-star game crap. What is that? Yeah, we want to have an all-star game. Really? What's that about? So keep that in mind that it's not good. The whole league's falling apart. Basketball, I don't even watch. They talk bad. Pistons, I don't even listen. I can't. Red Wings, I don't care. Baseball, I really don't care. Scooble, if they sign him or not, it doesn't matter. If you don't want to be there, then you're not going to play. If you want to date a girl and she doesn't want to date you, that's it. You don't keep chasing her. Or if you've got a girlfriend and she doesn't want to go out with you, then if you don't want me, then see you later. I mean, that's where you've got to keep the power and be stoic and say, fine, if you don't want me, then I'm not going to waste my time with you. Because that's what you're doing is you're wasting your time, the opportunity of being with another girl or meeting her or something like that versus being with a girl who doesn't want to be with you. And is the problem. All right, everybody. Well, have a good Friday the 13th. I'm off to get my hair cut. There's a lot more here than this is kind of a bad angle, but you can see all this hair a little bit because it grows in gray, but I've got quite the hair. So it's coming in, castor oil it every night. And when I put the castor oil on, I can feel the hair. Like here, I don't feel my head. I feel the hair. It's just because it's lighter and it's thinner that you still I can do that and look like Zero Mostel or something, which to me looks stupid, but there is hair. It's just got to grow in, and then it grows in gray. So I got to color it, but it's a lot more like here. Definitely got a lot more in there. So I looked at some pictures on vacation and I like, Jesus, I looked really kind of bald there. And now I kind of go, yeah, I look much better. Anyway, castor oil, cayenne pepper, and coconut oil, and just stir it up in a bowl, nuke it, and then just apply it. And I use it all week. I kind of make enough where I'm just nuking every day. And then, if I have to, I use more. Anyway, that's about it. Enjoy your Friday the 13th. Be careful. And don't run into black cats today or whatever else is the problem. And that's it. I thought it was very good. I like that last one with the Roman Empire and explaining the inflation. I thought that was very good. Whitlock, I thought was very good. Of course, I thought I was very good. George Soros, very evil guy. The Open Society, it's a communist society trying to hurt people. So, Black Lives Matter and all that, all these elections he's fixing. He's a terrible man. I can't believe he's still alive because World War II was 1940 and it's 80 years, but he was like a kid back then. So he doesn't have much time left. Anyway, that's it. All right. Off to the bank, off to get my hair cut, and then I'll go swimming. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. www.teaserking.com. And I don't know what Jake the Awake is. I only know Jake the Snake Roberts.